Welcome to the Procreate podcast. That's what we're called now. Hello. I'm joined here by Aaron from the US.
That is me.
Hello, Aaron. Amrasios from the Netherlands? Sweden?
Yes, that's right. Hello.
Netherlands? And James from not London, from in between Birmingham and somewhere else.
Leicester.
Hello, James.
We're so diverse. I like it.
So today we're gonna have a look at some of our works in progress, or in some cases, I guess, a finished piece, and just talk about it. And then we also want to talk about the processes that we all use when we make music. So
Like workflow.
I don't know which to do. Workflow. So maybe let's start with that.
Sure.
So I don't know. What's your workflow, Aaron? When you start a new piece, do you have one that's constant, or is it ever changing?
I feel that it's pretty constant, actually. Like, what I notice is that I tend to, like, just fiddle around on my banjo or whatever I'm playing, and then I get my chords first, and then once I get my chords, like, I make the verse, and then weirdly enough, I kind of work very linearly. Like, I don't get the chorus until, like, I'm finished with the verse sound already. So that's a fun one. And then I slowly make my way through the song, and then I'm doing this all acoustically, and then once I finish the entire song acoustically, then I go back, and then I put my pedal board through it. And then it actually kind of sounds nothing like the acoustic version by the time I do throw it in the pedal board version. So I'm kind of like throwing the song back into another like processing unit after it's finished. So it's getting extra polished when I'm doing like my live stuff.
So for each of your pieces, you basically have two like different versions, one being the acoustic finished one, and then your eventual final product, which has been through all your effects and
through all my
headers
effects.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
so I'm pretty much like writing two songs because of that.
That's super cool. Is that why pop musicians have acoustic versions of songs? Is it because they were originally written acoustically and then transformed into pop songs?
Oh, I doubt that.
I doubt that
you
too.
doubt that.
I doubt that a lot.
I
I find it interesting that your chorus comes after the verse. I feel like in my head that seems backwards to how.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, I acknowledge that it's super weird that that's the case, but I'm very linear.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. What about you, Amrasios?
Well, for me, it really depends on the piece, and especially if there's a deadline, to be honest. Because if I have a really strict deadline, and especially a really soon-to-be deadline, I usually work very, very much from a scheme. If it has to be a certain form, for example, sonata form or bar form or whatever, I usually lay out the entire piece in that form and actually make like marks how many bars I have to do to follow the form, so I can really manage my time very efficiently. Because otherwise I'll just have like an immense list of ideas which I'll never get filled in really within the time I have for a piece. Because especially like as a student, I usually get to do pieces which are only a few minutes long, and only very rarely do you get to like do a piece of over 10 minutes really. So actually, especially like when composing for a small ensemble or actually even an orchestra, but just like mashing in notes, it actually goes really quickly, and it really helps me to get organized, to use those kind of methods, and also really gives me a good overview of the piece even before I actually started writing any notes at all, where I want themes to occur, where I want to reoccur, where I want to have changes in certain parameters really.
So almost like plot points in a storyline.
Yes,
sort of.
I think you can see it like that. More like the key moments which have to happen, and I build the rest around that. But that's that's more for when I have like a really strict deadline. Like for an example, last year I had a piece which I had to write for like a 14-piece ensemble, which had to be done in a week. It also had to be 3 minutes, and I like very strictly followed my form. and I got it done at the end. So that really helped me there. But when I have a more flexible deadline, it really helps me to like I said before, first write down a bunch of ideas and then choose what I want to have happen, what I have to have happen at which moment, and just get a more natural feel for a piece, and especially of the material which I'm using, the way it wants to develop or the way it wants to stay the same, both melodically and harmonically and whatever really other parameters there are, and kind of feel the piece out a little more, if I'm making any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it like a bit of a, or it almost seems to me like a bit of a, having that sort of almost form first approach when there's a deadline is like allowing, it's like a metric or like a yardstick you can use to then make your creative decisions efficiently, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it is that way. It just gives a lot more overview of the piece, like how much more you have to do, because that's also a thing. Like a piece is really never finished, but if you reach the end, you can start with finishing it.
Yeah, that
That's
makes a lot of
awesome.
sense.
What about you, James?
Oh, I was just going to ask Ham another
Oh yeah,
question.
go for it.
How do you approach development? So,
Oh yeah.
like for example, sonata form.
Yeah.
You've got your development, and then you got the exposition, development, and recapitulation. How do you synthesize what you've already had into new stuff, and how does that fit in the workflow as well?
Well, actually, something which I really like to do is, especially when I get stuck in my own material, in my own head in a certain way, I really like to take a step back and analyze what I've had. It's actually something which Schoenberg, the atonal composer, or mostly atonal composer, I should say, he famously did. He actually analyzed his own pieces completely, and he actually realized things which were in his pieces which he didn't know about yet. So actually, I think that's a really useful tool to just take a step back and actually just look at the notes which you've already written, maybe the chords, maybe the melodies, whatever, and just take a look at them and say like, okay, what can I do with it? What can I make from this, and what way does it go? Like even very simple things. Is the melody going upwards? Is the melody going downwards? Or it does have like a curve to it? And what happens to that curve or to that upwards or downward motion if I flip it around or make it into a curve, something like that? And I think those kind of things can really help develop a piece, especially in things like a development. If you're talking about a small sonata. And also one thing I really like to use is harmony. That's actually one of my favorite parts of composition, if I'm being honest. It's the harmony, and especially the way harmony and melody interact. Because if you put the same, really simply said, it's like a very old film music trick. If you put the same melody under a different harmony, you get a really different feel, a really different vibe. And
Absolutely,
I think the same still goes for really classical things. Even Haydn, actually, there was a thing called a fake recapitulation, where in the what should I say, like before he actually gets to the recapitulation, he repeats the original theme, which was supposed to be in the recapitulation, but it was in a different key, and because of that different key, he could like modulate really freakishly to the main key where the actual recapitulation could start. It's not something you pick up like immediately, but it's a really good way to advance in a piece, I think.
Oh, I love Haydn. He's so underrated. Everyone thinks, oh, Mozart, oh, Bach, oh,
Because everyone
Beethoven.
skips to Mozart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone skips from Bach to Mozart, and they forget Haydn. Haydn actually lived longer than Mozart, weirdly. But damn, there's one piece by Haydn is this pause is going to be edited out probably. You can just cut this out.
So something that I
need to
noticed
find
about Bach is that I think the reason why people like him so much is because he's like the sad boy of all of the composers, and everyone relates to him because of that, because he has this sad mood.
Bach's not always the sad boy.
He's the sad
But
boy.
to be
man.
fair, there wasn't there a point in his lifetime where he he left.
A
He
soy
traveled
boy.
far away.
He did,
and then
yeah.
he came back, and his wife and like a bunch of his kids had died, and the
Yeah,
funeral
and that's-
already happened.
Yeah.
That's when he wrote Chacon, which is my second favourite piece of Bach. My first being Mass in B minor, but Chacon is fantastic. There's a stage direction on Chacon that is C'est Soli, which I think for a long time was interpreted to mean 6 soloists. Or I think people mistakenly interpret it as 6 soloists, but apparently it actually means you stand alone or something, and so it's just supposed to be played with one person on the stage playing it. And so it's one of the hardest pieces of violin music. I mean, I'm not a violinist, so don't at me, but it's supposed to be one of the hardest pieces of violin music because of all the whole thing is played double stopped, and the point of it is that Bach's trying to write a piece that sounds like 2 violinists playing, like him and his wife did together, but played on one violin, which is
Oh my gosh.
super brutal. Definitely go check it out if you haven't heard it. It's called Chacon.
Yeah, I've got to listen to it. I haven't listened to Chacon yet. I sort of got turned off so quickly after just, doing the prelude and fugue thing in uni. You get pretty off Bach pretty quick when
Yeah.
you do that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but it was kind of a thing that all of Bach's music actually was notoriously difficult, especially in his time. It was actually one of the points he was mostly criticized for his
too hard to play.
the inability to play his
Yeah.
pieces for performance of his time.
Do you know what? My favorite, one of my favorite pieces of romantic music is Opus 28, Number 4, by Frederick Chopin, and apparently he's quoted as saying, "This is a piece I'm writing for my funeral. I'm making it very easy so that anyone can play it," because he wasn't going to be around. He wasn't going to be around to perform at his own funeral, so he thought he had to write something that was like easy to play so that any old Joe could play it.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember when you said that. I cracked up so much.
It's
because he's not going to be there for
Yeah,
the gig.
because he's not going to be. Yeah, exactly.
He
Fantastic.
knows the next guy in the town, the next biggest pianist who picks up all his, the gigs he can't take is like
Yeah.
pretty crappy.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, it's your turn, James. What's your process? Do you have one?
I do, to some extent. I mean, because all the stuff I write is so different, I've been writing and recording music for years, but I'm still trying to nail down a style that I wanna work in. So a lot of the time, I'll be just listening to, I'll be listening to classical music and think, oh man, I'd like to compose a solo concerto or a small sonata. More accurately, I can't be bothered to compose concertos too long, but like a small sonata or feel like that, and then the next day I'll be sort of sitting there and listening to some Aphex Twin and think, oh man, I'd like to compose some glitchy stuff, and then do that, and then the next day it's like industrial metal or it. The music I try and write is also different. I've not really. It's a strange question, I think, to pose. I'd most accurately describe the way that I work as sort of just feeling it out. And kind of, I don't start on a chorus. I just start at the start of the song.
Right.
I just start at the start, work through it, and once I've got a song, then the real work begins. Because once I've got something to hang hooks on, I can then start to actually change it a little bit, like Am said. If you, I find it difficult to make a perfect song first time, or a song that's, you know, perfect to me at least, first time. And I'll write something, I'll get like 4 minutes of music, and then take that structure that's there and just start poking and prodding it, and, you know, adding new bits here, taking bits out there, and kind of working. It's weird because it's almost exactly the same as what Aaron said as well, with writing it acoustically first and then putting it through the pedals. It's almost like a different song. I think that fits for me as well. I think, you know, I'll start with something, and then once I can see it as a whole, I'll then look at it, and after stepping back and looking at it as a whole, I'll then go in and work on the smaller details and, you know, specific harmony or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds a bit like sculpture, you know, like you get that first big block, get the head shape, and then you add the detail in later.
Yeah, exactly. Just get the outline of it, just get the sketch in, and then work on the finer detail. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. Not issue, but the conundrum of like still not having a specific niche where you're like, I'm gonna live here now.
Yeah.
So it's like each piece being very vastly different. It sort of demands, or at least encourages, a different approach to composing, and then, you know, it's you end up having a really varied tool belt, but none of them you're particularly
Jack of all
sold
trades,
on,
master of none.
or master of none. Yeah, exactly. So I can resonate with that.
So something that me and James were talking about, and actually going back to like the sculpture thing. So we were talking about like sayings that like we're really into, and I said I'm really into the saying of, well, I don't know if it's a saying, but like I just like randomly, it's kind of like the philosophy that I follow, is that like the song already exists, and it all you have to do is experience life, and then once you experience your life, you kind of know the chords and the lyrics of the song that already exist.
Oh, interesting. So like with life experience, you'll sort of learn it, and then you've just got to like let it channel through you. Is that what it's sort of getting at? Or am I misreading it?
Mm-hmm. That's like the exact same way.
And then I said to that, I was like, oh, that's like what Michelangelo said, that in every block of marble,
Oh, the sculpture.
there's
he
a
sees
perfect
it.
sculpture waiting to be chiseled out.
Sounds very Herbie Hancock too, from what little I've seen of him.
Love Herbie Hancock.
I don't know much about him. I haven't listened to much of his music.
you
I'm
heard
not
Watermelon
huge
Man?
on like.
Your homework.
Can't remember.
Your homework, Connor, is
My
to go and
homework
listen to
is now
Watermelon Man.
Chacon and Watermelon Man.
Yeah.
Well, I want to do his course. I really want to do his masterclass
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Oh, did you see? Danny Elfman has one now.
Oh, I didn't. That's awesome. How do they get these
Fuck,
people?
Oh, I swore. Crap. Far out. Yeah, I know. It's like I've got now have to do Herbie, Hans, and Danny, and it's like it's too good. It's too good a time to be alive. The fact that I can just be from some like East Coast town in Australia and still have access to that for like, you know, a decent price. That's so lit.
It's awesome, yeah.
How much is it actually?
I think they're all about at 70 US, I think.
Okay, yeah. That's actually really awesome to have like knowledge just for like $70. That's less than a college book.
Ridiculously reasonable. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I guess that's the power of scale.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's just like a college
Oh,
book that's
man.
like $200, $300
Textbooks.
that you use only
Textbooks.
only like 10 minutes worth of.
I have a
man.
textbook that has hundreds of pieces of sheet music in. It's so heavy, and
I had a theory and analysis book that was similar. Just
it costs so much money. It's terrible.
I think ours cost about $400 for a set of theory books.
Yeah, and we can't even do the course without them. Like,
No.
if we didn't have one, our teacher would just be like, "You can't do this course."
Well, it was also like they did the crappy thing where it's like you could get an ebook, which is ideal, but you have to. The way you get it is by buying the real
book.
You
Yeah.
can't just get the ebook. So it's like the real book comes with a code that allows you to ditch the real book, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, the real trick would be partnering up with somebody and just saying like, you can have the code, but you pay. You split the price, but you split it 60-40, 60% for the one who gets the code and 40% for the one who has to get scoliosis for carrying a book in their bag for the year.
It's
Yeah,
so
no discount.
true, though. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
You'd think that we'd be way
I
ahead
guess-
of that.
I don't know. It's probably business savvy. It'd be the businessmen of the crew going, this is how we optimize our earnings by doing it this particular way until we need to, move on. It's like that. It's like internet companies or something, at least in Australia, where it's like, they'll slowly roll out data packages, but they can handle a lot more. It's like, because you want to optimize that.
Oh, like all that like
Time.
throttling internet
Yeah,
stuff.
stuff. Exactly. It's like they could, give you all the internet in the world if they wanted, but they there's business stuff there. Anyways, I will briefly outline my process, so I don't forget,
for it.
if I may, which is that I don't have a solid process yet, but I've had different processes, and there are ones I definitely like more and wish I used more, and then sometimes don't and regret it, being that I really, really am always sort of like proud of the work I've done when I go form first, much like Amrasios, where I have a structure, I know how long my piece is gonna, even if it's arbitrary, I know the form, I know how long it's gonna be. I've even like sketched out the instrumentation of what I want, and then it's a matter of like filling in the blanks. It's almost like prompts in like I don't know what that card game is, that really naughty one or whatever.
Oh,
where it's like
Cards Against Humanity.
you get a card and it's like, where it's got the blank. It's like I like to do it that way. That really funnels my brain, and like Amrasios, I really like to just be productive or feel like I'm just going at a fast rate, and then after the fact, once I've got this giant behemoth of ideas, then it's a matter of like all of us seem to consensus, like then being a bit of a sculptor and just chiseling out what doesn't work, and then swapping things around. But I definitely like to go big picture first. I've tried different approaches, and recently, like I just finished that Andrew Huang monthly course, and his approach is more that, and of course I followed his approach to, because that's good education or whatever, to try and take on a different thing. But it didn't sit well with me because it was a very loop centric approach, like, come up with a loop, riff on it, and then start from, it's almost like the opposite, start from sort of a very small idea that's very not detailed, but has its own intricacies, and then build out from that. And I struggle with that because I tend to get tunnel vision once I've written something. Like if I write a loop, then I struggle to come up with anything new because my brain sort of just keeps thinking of that loop. So
I could totally,
so I struggled with that.
I could totally understand why he would do that. Like me being a loop artist, like that's almost like the exact same like premise that I do.
I like the idea of it, and I tried it, and it does work. Like, I mean, they all work to a degree, but for me, I just feel like I just don't seem to process information in a way that makes that viable for, say, because obviously you want to develop or at least me and James will eventually want to develop a place that we can sit in and have a bit of expertise, or at least be able to pump out music if we need to for work or whatever. And it's like, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that with that loop centric approach because I just get stuck in the trenches sort of thing.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a composer, she's quite obscure, called Kaya Sario? I'm probably butchering the name. She's a crazy person. I mean, no offense, she'd probably want to be called a crazy person. The way she makes music is absolutely wild.
Go ahead.
So we study one of her pieces on our for my course, and it's called Petals, and it's basically this insane it sounds like someone having a seizure whilst playing a cello, and then that's been routed through like a harmonizer pedal and a load of other stuff. It's nuts.
That stuff's awesome.
And the sheet music for it is all
Oh,
completely. She wrote the sheet music out by hand, and there's the occasional note written down, and then there's so much other direction. There's stuff I've never seen on any other score on that score. It's scary, but we watched a video talking about how she composes, and apparently she just sits there and writes it out of her head. It's all just in her head, and she just sits there.
Stream of consciousness.
Yeah, and well, no, not necessarily, but when she writes stuff, she just doesn't take it back or change it.
Oh, so she commits.
Yeah. So she kind of commits on the spot, and just write it out of head. I could never write like that. Also, the amount of skill that you need to write sheet like that is scary as well.
Yeah.
But like, imagine having the music in your head and then just writing it out.
That's an excellent point, though, that maybe is like explains what I was trying to explain but can't. Is that like if I go big picture to small picture, I commit more. Whereas if I go small picture and come up with loops and stuff, I end up being much more I end up throwing stuff away or starting again over and over because I'm never like, that grass is always greener. You're looking for, like, I'm looking for the perfect loop and it needs to, or whatever. Whereas when it's big picture, it's just like, it just needs to be good enough for me to move on to the next thing. And then you keep doing, it's more like a lean approach, like software. It's like, is it lean? Where you just keep doing several passes and improve the quality gradually over time in passes. And
sounds like iterative.
Iterative, then that would probably be it. So it's like, if you've only got a week, then it might get to a third pass and that's pretty good. But if you have, a bigger period of time, then you'll get 8 passes. And I like to do it that way. And also my favorite tool is like listening to the piece with a notebook and then just like taking notes to like gather what your next steps will be. Because I tend to get stuck, once you hit a point, say in the middle or whatever, where you can't really, there's so many things you could work on and tweak, but like prioritizing what are the viable next steps. It's like, I find that helpful to just get off the computer and like have a notebook and just take notes, almost like a music exam where you like listen to a piece and you sort of describe its features and stuff like that. But shall we move on to our pieces? I think that would be really fun. I'm really excited to that.
Yeah, sure.
Does anyone want theirs to go first, or should I?
You could put mine on the Wild One. Me and James worked on that.
Oh, cool.
It's true, we did.
Okay.
Wild One. That's a song that I wrote about a girl I fell in love with that's up north in Canada. And basically it has a very like rock folk sound. And the genre is kind of like, it's called Americana. It's based on this guy named Shaky Graves. He does like a, I don't even know how to describe it, but he has this sound that it's just so gritty and just so raw. And I like fell in love with that stuff.
In terms of production, that's kind of what I went with. So Aaron usually writes stuff, and I'll try my hand at mixing and adding a little bit of production to it. But kind of the vibe I went with is kind of fairly compressed vocals, but not enough to take away any of the kind of growliness of the voice. And then my favorite bit in the song was the end and the harmonies at the end. So
the whales, as I call them.
Yeah. Sound like whales.
I always named them that because I had my roommate once said like, "What are you doing there? It sounds like whales," and I'm like, "That's exactly what I'm doing right now," because me recording.
So I thought I'd add my own little ambience to that as well. You'll see, but it's cool. It's a good song.
When I was writing it, it actually, I wrote it on an acoustic and on a notebook, and I think it was like 3 a.m. And yeah, that is a fun song when you like. I noticed that the best songs are written in the middle of the night when everyone's sleeping, when you're trying to be quiet.
Absolutely.
but
Yeah,
it's hard to be
absolutely.
quiet being a musician and also 3 a.m. So it's like you're kind of being a little loud, hoping that the parents or roommates
Yeah.
or whoever doesn't wake up.
Oh, well, I'm super keen. Okay, let's play it. 3, 2, 1, play.
Wild one is on the run somewhere up in the north. She's always on the move, ain't no catching up to her. As soon as she's got something to mind, yeah, she's had it over some time. She's got my eye and she's not letting go. She says the worry is under control. Wild one is making moves, but not for me. Let's zoom back, she's got something in mind. Yeah, she's got it over some time. She's got my eye and she's not letting go. She says don't worry, it's under control.
So, one thing to keep in mind is that when I did the electric guitar, I might have gone a little too far with grit. Because
I love the electric guitar.
the thing is that there was just so much distortion because I'm stacking overdrives. There's 2 overdrives, one crazy heavy metal one
Uh-huh.
that I bought
Yeah.
for like $100. It's a tube amp pedal. It's very massive and it's super weird, and that's why I bought it. It's just sometimes it goes too much, and it messes with my Soul Foods. I love the name of that, by the way, my Soul Foods distortion pedal, and it makes this like when I take my hand off, it makes this like zzz, kind of like gritty, kind of sparky sound, and I was getting so annoyed.
No, that's cool.
No, like there's like this part of this song. I mean, obviously I'm gonna critique it the most because I am the creator, and that's just how it is.
And you're hypersensitive to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I noticed, I'm like, oh, I don't like it at all. And then I sent it to James. I'm like, could you fix this? And then he drastically took it out. Like it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But obviously, like, as the creator, I'm like, oh man.
Was it just a matter of EQ, James? To get rid of that?
No, it wasn't. It was a little bit more complicated than that.
Surgical undertaking.
It was surgical. Well, hopefully not undertaking. It's not dead yet. But the problem was clipping audio. but not clipping audio in the normal way, but sort of lots of tiny little clips, like like lots of small clips, and so the way I fixed it, or at least tried to mask it, because when you got destroyed audio, there's not really much you can do to fix it, but you can kind of mask it by getting right down and finding each individual clip on the waveform, which takes forever, as Aaron knows, because I showed him how to do it after I did it.
And I was like, how did you do this? You fucking madman.
But you go right down to the waveform and then basically draw in what you think it should look like with a little pencil tool. There's probably plugins and other stuff that will do much better job, but
No way.
That's the way I do it. So yeah,
That's crazy.
And I'm
Well, that was
so happy.
I
about
really,
it.
I thought that was an awesome song. And it's basically finished. Anyways, I found the panning really interesting.
yeah. I
It's
spent a
like-
lot of time
I
trying to
felt-
figure out how to make space.
I felt like my left ear got a bit more love than the right, though. Is that by intention?
Not particularly. It was just kind of no. Well, that's why it's not a finished song. There's still, there's some stuff in the mix that I need to fix. I need to tweak the compressors, and now that you mentioned it, I'll probably change the panning as well. But
Work in
Just
progress.
it's just
Work in
towards the
progress.
second half. It's like the vocals. It's like a lot of the backing vocals. It's like a bunch, like one would come in on the right and three would come in on the left, and it's like I don't know what you call that, but it's that feeling of like imbalance that almost makes like ADHD-ish. You know, it's like it needs to be
yeah, OCD.
balanced, even. Yeah, is that it?
Yeah.
OCD.
Yeah.
You know, when it's like you're walking on the path and you don't want to step on the cracks or whatever. It's like
break
that.
your
Yeah,
arms
well-
back.
pedantic,
Yeah,
subconscious thing.
Yeah, well, maybe you could say that it's a stylistic decision to make the listener uncomfortable.
That's why I asked if it was intentional.
You gotta learn all the
No,
rules before
no,
you
it's
break
not
them.
that.
I
Yeah,
love so
yeah.
obviously the production parts that are more obvious that you put in are towards the end of the
Hmm.
song with the not lo-fi, but it's very common in that, like the blending in of the rain texture and then
Yeah.
the chimes. I
Yeah.
bloody love that, especially the chimes. I thought that
Hmm.
was such a nice touch.
Yeah.
How did you just think of that, or was there like a, I don't know, what made
Well-
you think chimes in a gritty song like this?
Well, I don't know. Radiohead, mostly, is what made me think chimes in a
Aha.
gritty song.
So
No Surprises, more specifically. I was listening to No Surprises, like, before he sent me the song, and so I just kind of had it in my head. You know, at the very start, there's that really quaint. It's such a drab, miserable song. If you know it, it's just.
no, I don't.
Oh, it's just. It's about suicide, and
Sure.
it's one of those songs that once you've heard it, you can't forget it. It's really good. That's added to your homework. Go listen to No Surprises by Radiohead.
No, okay, so I've got Chacon, Casario, No Surprises.
Yeah.
There's a guy that's actually from Great Britain, and when I first heard that, it reminded me of him a lot. And he's actually like one of my main inspirations learning to sing. His name is George Ezra. He's been like
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
a lot of his music does that as well. And I was like, that's awesome.
But
And then,
the rain.
yeah.
Well, it was raining as I live in the UK. Of course, it was raining.
also, is
But,
that your own sample?
Was that real or was
No,
that
no.
Okay.
Oh no, it's real. It's
it
real
is
rain.
real.
Yeah.
Did you record
Yeah.
it yourself or?
But yeah, I just stuck my phone out the window and
Oh yeah, so you did.
recorded some of the rain, and yeah. So it was raining. So I heard the entire thing with rain underneath it, and thought it added to it. So I was like, well, yeah, you know, stick some in at the end.
Yeah, it definitely does. I love when it came in, and I like that it does come in at the back as
Yeah.
opposed to all the way
Hmm.
through the song. And I love with one of the first backing vocals is like quite tinny. It's like got that EQ'd,
Yeah.
like in the middle of it. I just love that. I'm a sucker for
Mm.
that, where it sounds
Well-
like they're in an old like radio or something.
Yeah. Well, Well, that's kind of playing to the style, isn't it, of the grit? But then,
yeah.
I grew up listening to early 2000s like hard rock, and stuff like Linkin Park and other stuff like that, and that's quite a common thing. So that's just something that I'll occasionally use.
Yeah.
It's just one of those little musical motifs that kind of
Little motif, yeah. I love it.
yeah.
What did you think, Amrasios?
Yeah, actually, I have one main question. I'm dying to ask, really, because you told us it was like you were sitting at 3 a.m. with like an acoustic guitar and writing this song, and like I've heard of the style Americano before, but it was not really what I had in mind, especially when you told me that. So because I know with like especially with classical composition, like the timbre, like the it's like a big part of usually what you write, but it feels really weird to me that like you sitting there at 3 a.m. with an acoustic guitar trying to be silent really results in this piece with like a bashing electric guitar. And
Yeah.
do you see like, but also especially like if you're writing something like this, like writing down, I assume you're writing down like lyrics as well as maybe chords, and like coming up with a lead sheet. But like how far do you imagine it? Do you like imagine the chimes and the like things in other registers and other voices? In how far does your imagination go, or is others things you actually think during like recording, or maybe in post even, that you think like, oh, this can be nice to add?
So weirdly enough, I actually only write lyrics, and all the chords are actually just all in my head. So if I was to like bring out my notebook that has all of my lyrics, you won't see any chords. So if anyone was to pick up one of my notebooks, they would have no idea how the song goes. And I was writing this in acoustic. That kind of brings it back to how I write stuff. I go through the song a second time, and then I add my pedal board. That's when. So I was like writing it acoustically at night, and then the next morning, which I feel, I have such a happy moment when I feel about this, but I feel like you get a better understanding the next morning when you do write that late. So you understand the song so much more, and it feels like an actual it's like, oh, this is my baby that I made.
How did that come about? From such an acoustic process, how did it end up in that realm?
Okay, so with the chimes and stuff like that, that was all James. So that's all in post. The grittiness, I kind of had the idea of the grittiness because of this guy named Shaky Graves. He does all that stuff as well. Like, he releases like 3 versions of a song. One that's like a super acoustic-y, one that's like extra grit, like how I did this song, and like a weird like mixture of them in a live format.
Wow.
Okay. Who wants to go next? Let's get Am. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
You should tell us about it while he's looking for it.
It's actually a piece for trumpet and piano. I was asked by someone in my school, 2 people actually, who started a duo this year. And actually, the girl who plays trumpet, she's been asking me for quite a while to write a piece for trumpet, and especially a trumpet sonata. She just like came up to me about like 3 or 4 times last year, and she was like, "Yeah, can you write like a piece for me?" Because there's like no solo trumpet repertoire. Well, there is some, of course, but like she really wanted a trumpet sonata, and there aren't many. So she wanted one to be written especially for her, and now this year they started with this duo of piano and trumpet. I thought it would be a good idea, so I kind of talked about it with them, and they told me a little bit of what they wanted, and they wanted something a little more to the jazzy kind of side. But I still wanted to be classical because their duo is kind of focused on actually interpreting classical in a little bit of a different way, because they are a very classical ensemble, both very, very classically trained. But they like also play little jazz things from movie soundtracks, all those kinds of things that just transcribe it and actually play it in actual concerts. So this is something I kind of had in mind, and I hope you'll hear both classical and jazzy influences in the piece. Also, I should note it's very not finished. It's actually in sonata form. So this is the first part of the exposition. It's actually the first theme and the start of the second theme with the transition in between.
Cool.
Brilliant. 3, 2, 1, play.
Oh, it's very abruptly. I probably should have added that.
Nice. I like it. No, I
The
like
piano sounds like it gets so much love. I love it. Like that seems so fun to play. I just want to learn. I want to learn piano just for that.
I was super keen to see where the piano was gonna go. It's like obviously
I felt
you
it
know,
building,
like-
yeah.
Yeah, I was like getting psyched. That's lit. I love. This isn't to your composition. I just love because it's Muse score. I think you use. Or
Yeah,
Sibelius
it's
or whatever.
very
I just love how it
basically-
makes anything. It makes anything sound like it's from RuneScape. Shit.
Oh man.
Oh man. No, I love the mood from the very intro. Like I really like it, and it did seem that jazzy. I could picture like that, like a brush jazz kit, just like subtly backing it. So it was like, you definitely hit that note for sure. And then I really like the solo, how lyrical it is. Obviously, it doesn't come through that recording, but
Yeah.
I'm super keen to like, if you ever do make a recording, or I'm super keen for you to like hear it played by an actual trumpet player who can do
Yeah.
things like, you know, play legato and stuff, because it's a beautiful written melody. I really like its contour and how it's
Yeah, thank you.
well, it's what you wanted to
How
make.
do you,
yeah. And it seems like it's not afraid to sort of be a bit, you know, not too adventurous in terms of intervals, but still like be very moving.
How do you go about with recording a trumpet?
It's a good question. You stand on the other side of the room, basically.
Because I feel like
Trumpets
they're
are
just
so
so loud.
loud.
Yeah, they're very loud.
They are so loud.
Well, in our classical concerts, they would the sound engineers would set up at the very back of the amphitheater sometimes. So
Yeah.
maybe. I also really like. I noticed the piano. The piano's got like two parts. I guess it's like first theme, second theme. I can't really remember sonata form that well. So, but like the first part, I was like, oh, this is like Moonlight Sonata, like in terms of the pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ARP. Yeah.
Do 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 do, and then it had those Chopinish like developments where it's sort of maybe not a diminished chord, but you know how Chopin will like play a bit, and then for some transition he'll just have diminished chords over some crazy pattern building up
Yeah.
and up and up and up,
Yeah.
and there is a pain in the ass to learn.
Yeah.
Well, they
Well,
are. They're pain.
Don't want to make it too
Yeah.
easy for them.
No, that's true.
Oh, whatever. What did you
The,
guys think. Obviously,
Oh
Aaron
man,
loves it. What
I
about
love
you,
the
James?
swing. I love the swing in the piano part of the last. You could really feel the 2 and 4, the jazz emphasis there. The 2 and 4, it's awesome. The trumpet felt like Gershwin. It gave me that Gershwin vibe, and that's cool because you said you wanted classical jazz. Well, who does classical jazz better than Gershwin? Like,
Yeah.
Kapustin.
well, Kapustin, you are not wrong, my friend. You are not wrong. You've made my point invalid now. Yes, Kapustin does do classical jazz. Damn it. But yeah, no, it gave me the sort of, you know, that really long gliss at the start of Rhapsody in Blue. On, is it a clarinet?
Yeah.
I think it's a clarinet. Yeah. You should add something like that in.
Yeah, but trumpets really don't like it if you give them glisses. They really don't.
No, I know. That's why you should add it in.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember sitting in composition in like one of the first few weeks of one of my I don't know. I'd have been about 14 and I was just starting to get into like writing, and I remember sitting in and writing what I thought was this excellent trumpet part, and then my teacher came over and was like, "Oh wow, you found a trumpet player. You found a magical trumpet player." and I said, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, that's fantastic. Where did you get him from? He can play more than one note at a time. That's incredible. And obviously, I didn't know how a trumpet worked. And so the part I'd written had multiple notes at the same time.
That
which
actually is a thing.
unfortunate. Oh yeah, I
Brass
know.
players
the same
can
as that
play.
singing.
Actually, they can play one line and then sing another. There's actually an entire fugue written for
Yeah.
I think tuba, where they plays one voice and sings the other.
Sure, but musical. Oh well, no. What we were using then was Sibelius. Ugh, hate it. We're using Sibelius, and Sibelius doesn't do that. Sibelius just plays them at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I would have just put Divisi on the score, but she was like, "No, you've got to rewrite it as 2 and make it a counterpoint." I was like, "Oh, okay." And
But it's so much easier to write stuff on one clef.
I know it is.
Oh well. Well, congrats. So it's not finished. Is it far away? When's the deadline?
Yeah, there's not really a firm deadline. They kind of want me to finish it as soon as I can, but I'm actually just completely stumped with schoolwork, so I guess I'll have time to finish it when I'll have time to finish it. But I like, it's just something, whenever I'm really not in the mood to work on a school project, I have to work on it. I just sit behind my piano and play something and like come up with it and just paste it in, really. So it's really
fair.
work in progress.
It's good though.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's move on to. I'm really excited to listen to the Pepper track.
The Pepper track.
Tell us a bit about the Pepper track, James.
Okay. The file name is the Pepper track, just so I don't lose it. But I think I'm going to end up calling
Just
it
keep it that.
Ghost. Yeah, but the song itself has kind of an interesting backstory. So this is a piece of music that I wrote whilst under the influence of one of the hottest peppers in the world, a ghost pepper. It's about 1,000 times hotter than Tabasco sauce. Basically, I set myself the challenge of eating it and then writing something. It doesn't matter what it was, just write something. This is what I came out with, I guess. I kind of resorted to... the heat is insane. I'm really good with spicy food. I grow my own peppers. I make my own hot sauce. It's hard to describe just how ridiculous it is. I'm amazed I even came out with anything at all. The entire day just feels like a blur. I don't really remember it. It's kind of a fuzzy. It feels like I'm sort of blocking it out. But by the end of the day, I had this song. I wrote it in one sitting. The effects of the pepper did kind of wear off as it went through, and it became more and more possible to think about it and write. But it takes over your entire mind, leaving very little room for anything else. It's brutal.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, play.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball. Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wow.
That was super tasteful. I really appreciate like it like gives me Matrix vibes as well as the same sort of mood as your September challenge, the gamelan one.
Oh yeah.
In terms of like I guess the timbres and instruments you use and of course the glitch. And then the way it ended reminded me of like some of the music the Jabberwockies dance crew use in their dance numbers. It,
Oh, yeah.
It ends kind of on that, or like Tron, it ends like that. And I really like that kind of ending to an epic song. It's like it kind of tails out with a bit of a, you know, it doesn't just suddenly ends like, say, a dubsteppy sort of thing. It just kind of tails out with how it began. Like, you know, it grows in and then it shrinks away. I
Yeah.
love that.
Well, it's sort of
I love how it's just like 6 bars in or like 8 bars in, suddenly the rises begin. And I'm like, so I
Yeah.
assume this is when he's eating the chili.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like out of nowhere, it's like, I'm like, okay.
yeah.
I turned away
And the
from
clapping.
the mic because of how much I was laughing from the Mamma Mia. That's a spicy meatball. The first one got me so.
The clap.
wow.
Yeah.
Well,
The claps towards the end, I started to think that they were chewing sounds, like
yeah. It's it was a fun one to write. It's not the best thing I've ever written. I can't say I'm like super pleased with it, but you know, under the circumstances, I think it does what it's designed to do, which is well, I don't know what it was designed to do. It wasn't really designed to do anything. It just kind of exists. The
it
sample,
does.
I think I should address the sample is stolen from an old antacid commercial.
jeez.
And I wanted to use, because there's that line is also in The Mask, that old movie with Jim Carrey. Well, it's not
Yeah.
that old, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember it
that
from
movie
that.
with Jim Carrey in. But he's quoting it from that, and that I tried getting that sample first, but it had music in the background, and I couldn't be bothered to like get rid of the
Oh,
music.
yeah.
So I was just like, hell, I'm gonna find where it's originally from, and it was from an old commercial.
Oh. As funny as it is, like the track and like steeped in comedy, there's a lot going on there that's like very technical and stuff I still couldn't, do. So respect to that. Whether it's the panning, which is like kind of a thing you do really well. It's like all the glitches and the panning and the left and right.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the underlying stuff that like is supporting it, like the there's like a constant semiquaver, a 16th note, like little arpeggio that's constantly being modulated in some shape or form. It's like those little things are like a great foundation and still quite, it's like there's craftsmanship there. So
Yeah.
it's not just a meme, there's a lot going on there.
No, sure. I think I really like to lean into the detail of tracks and sort of the detail of the panning, the detail of automation, the detail of those sort of squashing and stretching drum parts just right, and finding just the right plugins and stuff to use to jazz everything up. But yeah, I think it came out fine.
Yeah, well, that presents, it comes through to me at least, like that high attention to detail. I feel like much beyond my attention to detail. I love like it's probably came with the synth maybe, but it's like the opening chords or whatever. It's like how they've got that subtle portamento to the beginning of the attack. It's like, oh, I love that.
Well, that didn't come with the synth. I programmed that myself, actually.
Oh, cool.
The yeah, so my synth of choice is Alchemy, and Alchemy does have loads and loads of pre-programmed stuff, but
Yeah.
I just had this idea of what I wanted in my head, and I couldn't be bothered to search through, so I was like, hell, I'm just going to make it. And I think I'm really now starting to get to a point where I can just make whatever I want, and that's fantastic.
Oh, so bloody jealous. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I really liked it. Especially at the start, I almost felt uncomfortable. Maybe it was because of the rising tone and everything. It's like so much happening at once. But it really it seemed as if I could feel like how uncomfortable you were writing it. that was like my first impression, and then later actually when it kind of went away, it was like, holy crap, this is actually really interesting what's going on. I don't think I have the ears to even notice everything that's going on, but it was like Connor said, actually it did remind me a lot of your submission for the September, I believe, challenge with the Gamelan one.
Yeah.
Because also it's a lot of glitchy stuff and a lot happening, and yeah, I thought it was just immaculate sound design.
Thank you.
Shall we move on to the final one?
Yeah.
Yours.
Do it.
Yay!
Yeah.
So I made a little video about it a couple of weeks ago, like when I began it, and it's that I got like my first sort of gig, quote unquote, where I got like the YouTube channel Keep Productive. They're just like, they review productivity apps and stuff. I offered to make like a music track for them they could use as their background track. And they were like, hell yeah, I'm keen. So this is what I made. The reference that we sort of went with, or the direction we went, because I pitched a few different concepts, I guess. We went with trying to sort of exist in that mood world of like Wii, the Nintendo Wii sort of console music and the different channels, Wii Shop and stuff. Yeah, of course. And then the original Sims soundtrack, or the new age jazz tracks in particular. So that's what this is. And then there's more to it in that the way, like, this will play from start to finish, but the way I've more or less, it's in its final pass and I've sent it off to get approved. So we might have revisions. So there's still room for changes. But what I've done is we'll listen to it start to finish, but I've basically exported it like 8 different times as different loops, so that ideally no matter what kind of length video he makes, he can just kind of put the song together like Lego bricks, and it'll fit the length.
Yeah.
And I thought that was an interesting idea to, maybe help out a video editor, so they don't have to, so they can use one track over and over again, and it can become their brand or whatever. But they, they don't have to worry about having to loop it or, what happens when it ends. So it's pretty much infinitely loopable. So yeah, that's hope you like. 3, 2, 1, play.
I feel like I'm back at spring.
Cool.
Wow.
The little, I don't know if it's like an accordion or an iwi or something.
It's an accordion. Yeah,
Is
it's an
it?
accordion.
It just
Yeah.
it is the Nintendo
It makes
Wii
it,
all
doesn't
over.
it? Yeah, it makes
all
it.
over. It's completely just the Nintendo Wii soundtrack.
It's funny you say that, because what I did before I started is I listened to the reference material, like about 6 different tracks, and I initially limited myself to only using instruments that were included in those tracks. So so that I would have no choice but to at least be in the ballpark. So that came from that.
Oh man, love it. Yeah, it's cool. It's really cute. It's little. It's like a little cute. Kind of. I can see like. When I was listening to it, all I saw was like. Green fields.
Springtime.
Springtime, and some weird guys coming over the hill with swords. Like
What?
the foam ones. The foam ones. Did you ever play Wii Sports Resort?
Oh, the phone ones. Yeah.
The one where you had to like your character was walking through the wilderness. And
I
loads
thought
of
this
people...
suddenly turned into Braveheart.
No. Loads of people just come out of the wilderness with swords and little face masks, and they come in and they
just peacefully
they try and
slaughter
fight you. Yeah.
That is the last music that you hear. That's the music that you hear.
It
as
is kind
you
of like
die.
a kids show. Like it's like it could pass for a Teletubbies sort of theme.
It gave me
Dude,
very,
Teletubbies
very
weird.
Little Big Planet vibes.
Oh. Yeah, I never would have thought of that.
What I personally really liked about it is you have some dissonances. I believe it was mostly with like the piano and guitar. Or I may be wrong.
Yes.
The guitar,
But
yeah.
especially the guitar,
was.
it really pops out sometimes, and I think that's something which
Yeah.
really sets it apart from the music that's behind like those commercials you just have in the background. Like the thing
Yeah,
where
sure.
it's just
No,
like
it's
la
not
la la
purely
la la,
consonant.
everything's happy and nothing, like there's nothing happening there. But I think this is like I don't know whether that was a decision you like made consciously and something you you just stumbled upon, but I think it really works very well for especially this kind of music, which has a tendency to get repetitive and, well, let's be honest, boring quite easily. But I think that's
absolutely.
definitely something which keeps it interesting.
From the very beginning, the first motif I came up with was the left-hand piano. That's a dun 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 dun, and it's like from the very beginning that progression contained a quote-unquote wrong note. I think it's in D minor, and like I went with like including both the C natural and the C sharp, invariably, and I use that a lot, and it does like create dissonance. And then of course the guitar is like naturally detuned, so even though it's playing the right notes, it's like got that detune. But I didn't want to fix it, so that I stumbled upon that, but I didn't want to get rid of it. I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I picked up on that distance straight away and thought, is this intentional? Is this accidental? And well, accidental. Did but
Nice.
woo. But you know, it's an interesting choice. I don't think I'd have chosen to do that. Maybe I play it too safe.
Well, we'll see. I'll be curious. Maybe I'll get the revision, and the first thing will be get rid of the guitar. Get it
or
out of
just
there.
get rid of the wrong notes. Yeah,
They're not wrong
Man,
if you do them.
it's good. I like it.
If you do them 2 times in a row, jazz, man.
Then it's
That
jazz.
is jazz.
It's jazz.
You made jazz.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for listening. I appreciate that. I'm actually pretty proud of how that turned out.
Hold on.
What?
I'm still on Kaya Sario's Wikipedia page, and she's quoted as saying this: I don't want to write music through negotiation. Everything is permissible as long as it's as long as it's done in good taste.
There we go.
And if you do the dissonance in good taste, then it's completely fine.
There we go. Well, hopefully it's in good taste. I feel like it's one of those things that like is almost deliberately wrong, so that kind of wakes you up a bit. But maybe that might kind of screw the track because it is meant to be background music. So I don't want people to watch the video and go, "Who the fuck wrote this music?" Oh, that's crap. Damn my Australian genetics.
Genetics.
Mate. Oh well, awesome. I think we've done everything we planned to do. We're at an hour 15, sitting pretty, so if everyone's cool with it, I think we'll wrap this up.
I'm happy about
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks everyone for joining and sharing your time. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks Amrasios for joining as
Yeah,
well.
thanks,
it's really
Sam.
cool to have a fourth member.
Yeah.
I think it's really awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
This is me recording more audio to beat Am's bar count. Haha, look at me. I'm recording more audio. Haha.